What's up, everybody? It's KBR Sports, the best sports talk show, a 24-hour day back from the break. Remember, you all can follow and subscribe to the KBR Sports podcast by going on Rabble TV, Spreaker, YouTube, iTunes, and SoundCloud. That way, you all will be email notified whenever a KBR Sports podcast segment is posted live or posted to one of those different mediums. And also by following Spreaker, you'll be notified whenever this podcast is streaming live. Don't forget, you can also follow the KBR Sports Twitter page at KBR_Sports with the live links and show topics are tweeted prior to every single show. And don't forget to like and comment so that way we can get your feedback on any KBR Sports show topic that you all might have liked or that you want to hear us talk about again, or a pitch a topic that you want to hear us talk about in the future. So don't forget to like and comment on the KBR Sports podcast when we're all streaming live or while you're listening to it on a later occasion. All right, y'all. So jumping into the next segment. Unfortunately, I mean, when it comes down to when you hear about a guy taking a break away from the game of basketball, you imagine a lot of things might be going on with the person. They might be dealing with a lot of personal issues, the whole nine. And you sit back and you have to kind of think about it, and your heart goes out to them, and you gotta kind of just hope for the best. And that person, I mean, that I'm alluding to is Derrick Rose. You know, Derrick Rose being a young kid from Chicago coming into this league, he was a phenom. Probably one of the most. It's acknowledged that it's probably him and Russell Westbrook 1 and 2 that are the most athletically gifted point guards to ever play in the NBA. Literally. I mean, now if you want to count, those two probably are the most athletically gifted point guards I've ever seen in my life. Like that serious. No games being played. Those two were next had another gear of athleticism that they always seemed like they could switch to. And when you look at it from that vantage point, you've seen how both the careers have taken two different trajectories. Russell Westbrook, a guy who stayed healthy for the most part, he did have his share of injuries. His career trajectory went up, and he maximized on all that his athleticism gave him, while Derrick Rose only seemed to have touched the tip of the iceberg before his major injury, his knee injury, years ago in the 2011 playoffs, in which that essentially changed what we've seen happen with Derrick Rose ever since. So now you look at it, you got to sit back and think, man, what could have been? That's been the story about Derrick Rose's career for forever. What could have been? A guy that was the youngest MVP in NBA history, a guy that took his team to the Eastern Conference Finals at a young age with just him and a really good defensive team on his back, led them to the top record in the Eastern Conference multiple years. And you sit there and think, like, what could have been with that young guy? And you got to imagine what he thinks. We all sit there and talk about Derrick Rose is used as the pun in a lot of injury jokes and a lot of health jokes and all that stuff. But really, really think about it. If you're the person in his shoes, constantly, time and time again, your knees messed up, your ankles messed up. He's had 4 major knee surgeries at this point in his career. So your knees keep messing up, your ankles keep getting hurt, all this kind of stuff keeps happening, whether it be your hand, your wrist, something is always coming up, and you always got to rehab. And it's always a process about getting back on the court where you spend more time rehabbing to get on the court than actually playing on the court. So you never really get to develop your skills because you're always rehabbing. You're always trying to get better. And you've seen glimmers and glimpses of the old Derrick Rose at times, of him using that explosive ability to get to the rim, him being able to shake and bake and weave his way in through a crowd and get to where he wants to go on the court. I mean, when you look at the season, Derrick Rose wasn't playing terribly. I mean, he averaged 14.3 points a game. He averaged a mere 1.7 assists a game. That was pretty bad. But then he also shoots, for a point guard, not bad, shooting 47% from the field, future 23% from the three-point line. But Derrick Rose never being a three-point shooter. But when his overall finishing ability, Derrick Rose's ability to get into the teeth of the defense and kind of make his way. I mean, he was shooting 90% from the free throw line as well. So you can only imagine, like, if he could have just stayed healthy. There's so many things that a lot of people just knew that there was so much good on the backside of all that was coming for Derrick Rose if he could have remained healthy and would have never have really sustained that major killer of a knee injury. So now you hear how he wants to take a hiatus from the game of basketball, and you can't blame him essentially, but there's a lot of things that go into this. I mean, you hear guys giving their support, and most notably LeBron James, Dwayne Wade, and Cleveland Cavaliers head coach Tyronn Lue, in which Tyronn Lue comes out and says essentially that he expects Derrick to be back in about 2 weeks. But it's just one of those things that at this point in time, Derrick Rose has to take time for himself and really get his mental map together off the court, and so he can be a more productive and cohesive player on the court. I mean, you hear comments like Derrick Rose made years ago when he was talking about this is a guy that signed a excess of $80 million contract, and you see him sign a contract like that, and yet he's talking about, man, I just want to be healthy so I can make sure I can take my kids to school, I can play with my son, all this stuff. And a lot of people in the regular world are like, okay, what is he talking about? Because if I had excess of millions of dollars that I'm getting paid on a yearly basis, regardless of my injury or not, I have nothing to complain about. But you got to understand, for a guy who's done nothing but play basketball since his infancy, essentially, and has pretty much grown up in this world of basketball and thinking and loving and believing that this is what he would do for the rest of his life, essentially until he would have to retire from the game. You gotta believe that him now dealing with the fact that it's not even like he himself is really kind of giving up on the game, but he's more so. It's not like he can't play though, but it's one of those things that you kind of can't end up help but feeling that like you're getting forced out from playing the game, like the game is making you give it up in some essence, because he can't stay healthy enough to enjoy the particulars of having, or he's not being able to enjoy the particulars of being a healthy player. He can't maximize all the capacities and abilities of his NBA career. So it's in some essence that's kind of what has brought him down to this low point where he's like, man, do I want to do this anymore? Do I want it? Or I don't even know. Like, we don't know if he's contemplating retirement, but there's a lot of things that go into it if Derrick Rose were to contemplate retiring. So Derrick Rose signed an $80+ million contract with Adidas, right? But in order for that contract to stay intact, Derrick Rose, he signed that following his MVP season. But in order for that contract to stay intact, Derrick Rose would have to be an active NBA player and be still making strides to play and be active on the court. If he were to retire, that contract would be null void, and he would have to pay back essentially what he would be being given by Adidas in that contract. And a lot of people, we all know, money is an incentive for a lot of things. Money makes people do a lot of things, and I don't think if he's talking about wanting to take care of his kids and be able to be financially stable for his kids, yeah, he's not giving up that money. I'm sorry, he's not giving it up. That's a lot of money to give up that money. A lot of people do think a lot of worse things for less money. Trust me, Derrick Rose is going to be back on the court. It's all just a matter of when, and essentially just wondering how long it will take for him to get his bearings together, because you kind of just got your heart goes out to him and hope that everything is going okay with him, that he will end up coming back and reflecting somewhat that guy that we all fell in love with back in 2010, 2011. But all right, y'all, I'm going to go into the last segment of the night. When I come back from the break, I'm going to talk about a head coaching firing that happened in the NBA tonight that has a lot of people buzzing and has a lot of marquee superstars in the NBA and a lot of pundits very confused as to why this NBA head coach was just let go. Stay tuned to find out who I'm talking about. It's KBR Sports, the best sports talk show 24-hour day. Don't forget to refresh the page after about a minute or so, where the live link will be back up for you guys to tune into. It's KBR Sports.